Hello, YouTube. This is Lefty79 from the NFL Stableford League, the commissioner of the NFL Stableford League, back with you for another installment of the Power Ranking Show. This time we're talking about week one from the 2022 season. We're already starting week three, but I have a double shot coming this week, as I already have the week two Power Rankings uh, tabulated and finished. I just have to get those formatted and published to the spreadsheet. But for this show, I'm just going to talk about week one, as we just wrapped that up last week, obviously. But I was just taking a little bit extra time to get the spreadsheet updated and just to get the formatting the way I wanted it. So, but as it is, we got a lot of stuff to talk about anyway when it comes to the new game, and I know there's a lot going on in regards to that. But these rankings are from week one, so we're gonna go pretty quickly here as I am a little bit limited for time. But we're gonna start off right away with the Minnesota Vikings, my division rival, who I took on in week one. Uh, Andrew is 0-1 now after week one. Just a tough go of it here as they were not able to get the game in due to some logistical reasons and a little bit of misunderstanding and communication. But as it is, the Vikings are going to be fine, I think, going forward. Just a setback here in week one as they lose to Green Bay 25 to nothing. And then we'll go to Philadelphia for week two. So we'll see if the Vikings can get on the field and bounce back in in week two. We'll find that out in the next power ranking show, which I'm planning on doing probably tomorrow, uh, probably in the morning tomorrow, just to get that one in the can. So we're gonna move forward here from Minnesota to number 31. It's the Arizona Cardinals of Art Vandelay who are 0-1 to start the season after losing at home to the Kansas City Chiefs 25 to 21. Now that's a little concerning that the offense still hasn't figured it out, but as it is, I think with the new game coming around the corner, that might be a good thing for the Cardinals. I just maybe they're just a little snake bit in this league because I know they made the playoffs 2 seasons ago, and it's just been kind of like downhill since then. But Art's been giving it a great effort every week, and I have a feeling that things are going to turn around for them in due time. But next week they'll be taking on, actually in week two they'll be taking on the Las Vegas Raiders in Vegas. So we'll see if what happens there stays there or ends up in the tabloids. As we now head to number 30, another team that's hitting a little bit of the skids here, and that is the New York Jets, who are 0-1. David lost to Baltimore at home, 26 to 20, at his own place. That's a little concerning, as you would have thought, as someone who was very intimately aware of their surroundings in that home environment, that the Jets would have maybe put up a little bit more. But as it is, it looks like there's some struggles going on there, and David's going to look to turn that around in week two at Cleveland and put a little bit better of a product out on the field. But we'll see. The Jets, in the past they've made the playoffs as well, kind of similar to Art. I think their last time was a couple years ago as well. So we'll see if the Jets can turn things around. As right now they seem to be uh, nose diving here. As we now head to number 29, going to go fast and furious here through these rankings. As it's Paul, the Taftman's Houston Texans at 0-1. They lost to the Colts at home, 27 to 20. Uh, not the best effort there from the Texans after coming off a division title last season and a playoff berth. Uh, they still have a pretty good amount of handicap, so I'm a little bit surprised at the score. But as it is, there might have been some tempo troubles and there might have been some other issues going on there. But I fully expect the Texans to get back to being competitive week in and week out. I just think it might have been some week one issues, but As it is, they'll be hoping to turn things around at Denver in week 2, and I expect to see a little bit better of an effort there from Paul. I know he's going to give it his all, and we're going to go to number 28. Speaking of giving it their all, it is Sky Blue Ben's Dallas Cowboys coming in at number 28 after losing at home to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 25 to 22. So a little bit of a disappointment there coming out of the gate for the Cowboys at 0-1, but not to fret. The cheerleaders are still there. Everybody's still feeling pretty good about this season yet, as it is early. But as it is, they will be now playing the Bengals at home in week 2. So I'm looking to see the Cowboys bounce back here after a little bit of a downer, losing at home to Tampa Bay. As we now move up to number 27, well, this is a stalwart of the league who's been in from the beginning. It's the Carolina Panthers, the new look Carolina Panthers, at 0-1 as they came out firing against the Cleveland Browns at home, but just weren't able to put up enough points as they went down 28 to 25 uh, in a pretty good game there. So Carolina next will play at New York at the Giants of Tag Rocket. Uh, Former friends, or not former friends, I mean, they are friends, I'm pretty sure, but they played together in the Cup. So, very familiar foes there coming up in week number 2. But this is a positive performance for the Panthers, even though they didn't quite get over the hump in week 1. I think they can take something from this and move forward. As we now move to number 26, well, it's the Las Vegas Raiders of Lucas, who are 0-1 after losing at the LA Chargers 25-22. So got knocked down by a field goal there. Uh, I think going forward, Lucas will be fine. I think he's gonna play better at home, as he's very familiar with the surroundings there. Especially, he's got Art coming in, so not to poo-poo Art here, but he usually takes a little bit of time to get going. And I think the Vegas Raiders have a good opportunity there to get in the win column. And I just feel like with that built-in home course advantage, I think that's going to help the Raiders in week 2. As we now hit the top 25, we hit number 25, and going through a table, it's the Buffalo Bills. The Bills Mafia with Patrick are 0-1 after losing at the Rams 24-22. So a little bit of offensive struggles here from the Bills Mafia to start off the season. Uh, don't really want to see that, as they were basically right on the outside of the playoffs, and now they're going to have to work their way back up a little bit here, starting off on the wrong foot. But week 2, we'll see what happens as they're back home against Tennessee. But you can't look past Tennessee as they are going to be mentioned later on here, and they're having a pretty darn good start right now. So that'll be a good game in week 2. But we'll see if Patrick can figure things out for the Bills, and going forward, I expect him to be in the AFC East race. It's just a matter of maybe just didn't like the surroundings, didn't like the LA atmosphere, and they'll look to turn things around. As we now head to number 24. Try not to go too fast, but I am strapped for time here. It's the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 0-1 after losing at home. Actually, they lost on the road at Detroit, 26-24. Zuby put up some points there. It's just that Detroit's tough. CF is always a tough customer at home, and in week 1 they were pretty fired up after Hard Knocks, and definitely the Eagles put up a good show, but just weren't able to quite pull out the win. Next, they'll be taking on Minnesota at home, though, so the Eagles have a pretty good opportunity to get back to the 500, as the Vikings are struggling a little bit here out of the gate. Now we head to number 23. Well, right next door, it's the Atlanta Falcons, who are 0-1. Uh, Prowse lost at home to the Saints 27-25 in a pretty good offensive battle there, as both teams were able to put some points on the board there. But as it was, a big divisional matchup early goes to Greg and the Saints, as the Falcons are now going to have to go on the road across the country at the LA Rams. So that's going to be a tough task. But if the Falcons can somehow pull that one out and get back to 500, that'll be a big boost for them. But as it is, I have them 23rd here in the rankings based on the fact that they had a pretty good showing in Week One. Just wasn't enough to take down those mighty Saints. As we now move to number 22, the double deuces here. Let's find out who we have. It's Pat Strife's Pittsburgh Steelers at 0-1. Not Philly, Pittsburgh. Same state though. They lost at Cincinnati 26-23 in a very close game. Uh, just with that new offense, it's going to take a little bit of time to gel. Uh, they got a home game coming up next week against the Patriots, which that's a pretty big rival there in the grand scheme of the AFC. They're not a divisional rival, but those two teams have locked up many times in the past. So we'll see if the Steelers get up for that one and are able to bounce back from this AFC North defeat at Cincinnati. As we now move, well, to the aforementioned Patriots at number 21 this week. The New England Patriots of Franz, who are 0-1 after losing a heartbreaker on the road at Miami in overtime, 26-23. The big divisional game there, and yeah, that one might hurt later on. But we'll see if the Patriots, can pick it up and lick their wounds a little bit and go on the road at Pittsburgh and try to get a win. But as it is, yeah, that's a tough thing to do, lose in overtime to a division rival. But it happens, and I know the Patriots put on a pretty good show in the second half to get to that point. It just wasn't quite enough. As we now hit the top 20, who do we have? Well, we got the 12s of the Seattle Seahawks. They're 0-1 as new owner Mark came in and did a pretty good job in Week 1 against a tough Denver team at home. Uh, 25-24, they went down by a point though. Denver barely clipped them, and that sent Seattle to their first loss. So Mark now will take on the 49ers at San Fran in a divisional matchup. So we'll see how that goes in week number 2. So I'm interested to see how Mark does going forward. He's getting acclimated to the NFL now and understanding some of the players, so it's good to see that. And it's always good to see, the amount of new faces that come into the league, and he's definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with, I think, going forward here. As we now move to number 19 and the team I just mentioned, it is the San Francisco 49ers of Jason. Another stalwart in the league who's been in it from the beginning. Starts off 0-1 though. Had a tough assignment on the road at Chicago, losing 30-25. So he put up a good number of points. It's just the Bears just went off, and we're going to talk more about them in a little bit, as it's another new team owner in the league. But the 49ers now will take it coming home now to take on the Seahawks in that divisional matchup for the NFC West. So we'll see if the Niners can bounce back in week 2. As we now head to number 18, we're going to take command with a new owner. It's Gatorman Mitch in the Washington Commanders at 0-1 after a tough loss at home to the Jaguars, 32-29 in overtime. What a high-scoring affair that was. Both teams were putting it out there, and just the conditions were ripe for scoring, and unfortunately the Commanders just weren't able to get that last field goal to go in overtime. But a great start for them offensively, I'll say that, and they'll now take on the Detroit Lions at Detroit in week 2. So a good start for Mitch up here at number 18. And now we're going to head to number 17, a team I know pretty well. It is the Green Bay Packers at 1-0. Kind of rated them a little bit lower here because of the fact that it was kind of a misleading performance. 25 to nothing at Minnesota. Still, it's a good number of points, but maybe not quite as much pressure knowing that there was some issues going on the other side. But as it is, the Packers did get the win and will now head back home now for another NFC North matchup against the heated division rivals, the Chicago Bears. So we'll see if A-Rod and the boys can make it 2-0. I mean, that would be a first for me, at least in this league. But as it is, the Packers are 1-0 at number 17. As we go to the halfway mark, it's the number 16 team, and it's a familiar face in a new place. It's the Miami Dolphins at 1-0 of Coinhen Zach. After a big win at home against the New England Patriots in overtime, 26-23, they're at number 16 here in the rankings. They'll next take on the Baltimore Ravens at Baltimore in week 2. Uh, just yeah, it was a little bit of a closer game than I expected there from the Dolphins, but nothing to be worried about. This is a solid start to their season, and we'll see how things are going forward with that new look offense. As we now go to number 15, it is a new owner alert. It's the Los Angeles Chargers of Old Man Gaming. Allen is 1-0 after a big win at home against the Las Vegas Raiders, 25-22. So that's a nice start to the season for them. And they'll next take on their division rivals, another division rival, the Kansas City Chiefs on the road. So we're going to see how that one goes in week 2. That'll be interesting to see if uh, there'll be some fireworks in that one. I guarantee that. As we now move to number 14, the old reliable, been in the league from the beginning. It's the Detroit Lions of CF, who are 1-0 after that win at home against the Philadelphia Eagles, 26-24. So they take a part of the ownership of the NFC North lead with that 1-0 record, and they'll next take on the Washington Commanders at home. So you don't want to look past them as Mitch had a really good showing at home in week 1, and we'll see if they can translate that to a W in week number 2. But the Lions, yeah, a way better start this year, and that's why they're up here at number 14. As we now head to lucky 13, who do we have here? Well, we have a familiar face in a new place. It's Chinatown's Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 1-0. After a big win on the road at Dallas, 25-22, They will now go on the road again at New Orleans to take on their divisional rival, the Saints. So Chinatown feeling energized with this new squad, doing a great job getting them going right off the bat, and we'll see if that momentum can continue and move up these power rankings. As we now head to number 12, it's the Kansas City Chiefs of Kike, who are 1-0. This has been one of the highest ratings for them in a while, but the way they played on the road at Arizona, definitely well deserved after that big 25-21 win. And next, the Chiefs will take on the LA Chargers at home to see if they can take that early lead in the AFC West, which is definitely going to be a very competitive division this year. Some very good teams in the AFC, and that AFC West is definitely a pretty stacked division. As we now move to number 11, well, we go from the AFC over to the NFC here, and we see it is the Los Angeles Rams of Kevin, who are 1-0 after a big win at home on their tour-worthy approved course against the Buffalo Bills, 24-22. Kind of just had to throw that one in there. But the Rams definitely starting off the season right with a big win, and they'll get to stay home against the Falcons. So possibly looking at a 2-0 start for the Rams in a division that had some struggles this past week. The Rams are on top at 1-0. So kudos to them, and we'll see if they can keep the momentum rolling at that cushy new course they have. At number 10 now, we're in the top 10, and we got a little bit, maybe a little bit of a surprise here, but they played well enough to win in week one, but it's the New York Football Giants, who are 0-1, but not because they played poorly. It's just because they ran into a really good team on the road in Tennessee, and they lost 28-26. So yeah, Don did everything he could to probably win that game, but as it is, the Giants do start the rankings here at number 10 and will now take on the Carolina Panthers at home in week two. So I'm looking to see the Giants get in the win column for that one. But you know what? You can't look past anybody in this league, and you know Don will take that very seriously, and he'll be up for that task right there in week number two. As we now head to number 9, who do we have here? We got some surprises. I'm thinking here. We got the New Orleans Saints of Greg coming in at 1-0 after that big win on the road at Atlanta, 27-25. A good win for Greg there, and that's a big divisional win too. So we'll see in week two how the Saints will march at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're a bitter division rival there. So a good number 9 ranking for the Saints, which coincidentally is Drew Brees' number, which I'm sure will probably be retired at some point by that organization. As we now head to number 8, who do we have here? We got some surprises, and here's a familiar face in a new place. It's the Indianapolis Colts of Pizer, who are 1-0 after a very dominating win on the road at Houston, 27-20. So you got to give him credit for that. I mean that's Scott just coming out of the gate and just putting it on him, and that's definitely worthy of a top 10 ranking to me. As the Colts will now take on the Jaguars on the road. So that's going to be a big test for the Colts as they really have a tough time in Florida in years past, and we'll see if they can figure that out in week number 2. As we now head to lucky number 7, we got a new owner alert. Who do we have here? It's Earsy Boy Dan and the Cincinnati Bengals, who took over for our league champions a year ago, Jason CK, which we wish him the best. But the Bengals are coming off the league championship season and start off 1-0 after a big win at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, 26-23. And next they'll be taking on the Dallas Cowboys in week 2. So that's going to be a good one, folks. I have a feeling that you can't look past Ben there, as you know he's going to be fired up at home. But the Bengals coming out from that championship, no championship hangover here, as the Bengals get that first win, and that's a big one, especially against a division rival in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As we now move up to number 6, and it is Corey's Jacksonville Jaguars at 1-0 after that big win on the road at Washington in overtime. They're the highest scoring team in the week this week with 32 points, and definitely one of the reasons why they're up here, as the Jaguars were definitely able to put some points on the board and get that win. Next, they'll be taking on the Colts, as mentioned just previously, at home. So a big opportunity there for the Jaguars to take early control in that AFC South. I know last year they just missed out on the playoffs, so they're looking for some redemption this year, it looks like. As we now hit the top 5, we have a new owner alert also, and it is the Cleveland Browns of Eric, who are 1-0 after a big win at Carolina, 28-25, to kick off the new ownership, the new regime. The Browns definitely came out firing in week 1, and the new ownership had to be pleased with the effort there, as they'll now take on the New York Jets in week 2 at home. So they'll be looking to translate that week 1 effort and keep the momentum rolling. I know it's been a little bit for the Browns since they've been in the playoffs, but it's looking pretty good this year for them if they can keep the momentum going. And being in the top 5 in these power rankings definitely shows that. As we now move to number 4, Another new owner alert. It is the Chicago Bears of Austin, who are 1 and 0 after a big win at home against the San Francisco 49ers. Uh, Definitely wasn't expecting the barrage of points there from the Bears, but you know what? I'm sure it's very welcome by the fans, as 30 points is nothing to look down on. I mean, that's a huge effort, especially in week one from a new owner. So you got to give them lots of credit for that, and that's why the Bears are in number 4 this week. Uh, and next they'll be taking on the Packers on the road. So we're gonna see now how this translates in the division, as the Packers and Bears, obviously it goes way back in the NFC North, but as it is, great start for the Bears, and that's why they're at number 4 here in the Week 1 power rankings. As we now head to the top 3, who do we have taking on that third spot? None other than the Tennessee Titans of Platypus Brigade, who are 1 and 0 after just a monumental win at home against the New York Giants, 28 to 26. Uh, Got to give them credit there. I mean, they're just now there was a little bit of handicap involved there, as you know he does get a couple points, but you know what? You still got to get the win, and the Titans were able to do that against a very quality opponent. And next they'll be taking on the Buffalo Bills at Buffalo. So that's going to be another tough New York opponent. But we'll see if the Titans can get the job done as they did in week 1, that's for sure, and that's why they are near the top of these rankings at number 3. And now we head to the number 2 spot. This team just gets it done. They're going to ride this year, and it's the Denver Broncos at 1 and 0 with Austin. Uh, with that big win on the road at Seattle, which that was a clash of two darn good players in week 1, two darn good owners, and the Seattle Seahawks gave them all they could handle, but the Broncos were able to pull that one out on the road in front of a very raucous crowd, 25 to 24 in front of the 12th man. So the Broncos now head to Houston, or actually head home to take on Houston. So don't want to look past them, as the Texans are coming off a tough loss in week 1, and they're going to be looking to come back with a vengeance. But kudos to the Broncos on this number 2 ranking to begin the season, as we now hit number 1, and this is a team that's had some success in a lot of competitions in the NFL Stableford League. It's the Baltimore Ravens of Eddie, who are 1 and 0 after a big win on the road at the New York Jets, 26 to 20. Really liked how they took care of business. Really didn't leave it up to chance at all by winning by 6 points on the road against a pretty tough opponent at home. Actually on the road at their place, but you gotta like how the Ravens came out, and for that reason they are the number 1 team in these power rankings. Uh, they'll take on the Miami Dolphins in week 2, and that'll be at home. So we'll see what happens there, as the Dolphins are definitely reloading, or they're going to be they're going to be a tough team this year. But the Ravens look really good in week 1, and for that reason, that is why they are the number 1 team in the NFL Stableford League week 1 power rankings. Now you'll be able to find these rankings out on the spreadsheet, and I will have week 2's out there shortly. But I'll be looking to get that show in probably in the next 24 hours here, as I really want to kind of do a double shot and get these rankings up to speed. But I really want to thank you for joining me. This is Lefty79, the commissioner of the NFL Stableford League, thanking you for tuning in for this first installment of the Power Ranking Show. I'm looking forward to bringing these to you every week. Again, thanks again for watching, and I will see you down the road. Bye, everybody.